Who is Corvus Corax? Corvus Corax is the Primarch of the Raven Guard Space Marine Legion. Growing up to become a revolutionary for the workers of Lacacius, Corax became a master of guerrilla warfare and hit-and-run tactics. He remained true to the Emperor during the Horus Heresy, and as such, his legion took some of the heaviest losses of the war during the Drop Site Massacre. Corax was separated from the Emperor while still an infant by the four Chaos Gods. He was discovered on Lacaeus, the desolate moon of the planet Caviar. At this time, the planet was a technologically advanced forge, providing its city-sized factories with minerals extracted from the non-atmospheric moon by legions of mine slaves. Under the iron watch of the heavily armed guards, the inhabitants of Lacaeus, criminals, political opponents, and workers who had failed to meet their quotas, had long provided the rulers of Caviar a free and unlimited source of manpower. After the slave girl, Nasturi, discovered the white-skinned child who became Corax, the deliverer in their tongue, they kept him from their masters, training him in the various skills they believe a leader and warrior needed: urban warfare, close combat, and demolitions, as well as political and philosophical matters. Ultimately, his abnormally fast maturation comforted the slaves, and they became fixed in their belief that he was the savior they waited for. Educated to be a leader, as well as a rebel, he rapidly began his task by organizing the workers into fight teams, promoting the best of the men as squad leaders. He began building huge stockpiles of weapons, concealing them in numerous secret caches. He ordered a campaign of psychological warfare, launching riots and strikes to build up followers in the workers' rebellion, and to stretch the garrison strength and morale to a breaking point. Waiting for the opportune time to strike, Corax's forces launched their attack, taking key security points and destroying them by crude force or sabotage, killing every man of the Lacaeus defense forces. When Caviar's ruler struck back, Corax was ready for them. He outmaneuvered and ambushed their forces on Lacaeus with his battle-hardened warriors, crushing their supply lines and striking the 5 biggest cities in Caviar with 1 atomic mining charge each. The charges were embarked on small transport shuttles and reached the surface via supply gravity well. Soon their forces nearly destroyed, their vast factories unable to produce anything due to the mineral shortages, the tech guilds collapsed in civil war. While thousands had died in the nuclear bombardment of Caviar, millions of its people had been freed. Celebrating their victory, the inhabitants of Lacaeus renamed their home Deliverance. It is said that the Emperor appeared in Deliverance that day, and after a day and night with his son, appointed him Primarch of the Raven Guard Legion. Nothing is said for their conversation, but one condition of Corax's acceptance was the help of the Emperor in the task of bringing peace on Caviar. Soon the Adeptus Mechanicus stepped in and the world was rebuilt to the benefit of the Imperium, while the Black Tower, which once housed the guards of the moon, became the Raven Spear, the fortress of the Legion. During the Great Crusade, Corax's talents for planning and sabotage were of great effect, and the Raven Guard, fighting frequently under the orders of Horus, became renowned for an unmatched ability with covert ops, sabotage, infiltration, and lightning strikes. But the pair never saw eye to eye, and after an argument, the two Primarchs nearly fought each other. Corax left Horus's command. Corax also began to display great ill favor and mistrust towards Terran-born warriors with his legion as opposed to those from Deliverance. This was due to Corax's disgust with the Terrans for their use of terror tactics, which reminded him of the Night Lords. Corax instead sought to transform the Legion into a force for liberation of the oppressed. While Corax bitterly opposed Horus violently sacrificing Terran-born recruits in the Battle of Gate 42, he nonetheless began to purge Terrans by sending them on forgotten crusades to the galactic rim and unexplored space. During the crusade, Corax was frequently compared to Conrad Kurtz, Primarch of the Night Lords. The two were not physically similar, but also alike in their childhoods, and even how they waged war. However, unlike Kurds, Corax retained a deep degree of humanity and did not engage in the mass slaughter that the Night Haunter was known for. Corax himself was disturbed by the comparisons of Kurds, while the Night Lord's Primarch himself came to hate the Raven Lord for the constant comparisons. During the Karane retribution, tensions between the two came to a head when Corax confronting Kurds over his mass slaughter of civilians. The two nearly came to blows, but Corax was able to convince Savitar to pressure Kurds to withdraw. The Raven Guard Primarch only met Horus again on Isfahan V during the Drop Site Massacre. Corax was among the Primarchs leading the loyalist effort against Horus's betrayal. In the battle, he personally engaged Wordbearer's Primarch Lorgar in combat, impaling him with his lightning claws. Just as he was about to finish Lorgar, Conrad Kurtz intervened and forced Corax to retreat. Though grievously wounded and forced to fight a guerrilla war on Isfahan V for the next 98 days, he escaped the slaughter with a handful of loyal Space Marines thanks to the arrival of a small Raven Guard Navy led by the Captain Bran Neve. Captain Bran had been left as reserve on Deliverance, and he departed the moon only due to strange dreams haunting the nights of Prefector Marcus Valerius, the commander of the Tharian cohort, a loyalist Imperial Army regiment. Unbeknownst to both sides, the Alpha Legion had allowed Corax's escape to further the plans of Alpharius. On quitting the Isfahan system, Corax sent back a Deliverance all the remaining ships while he himself headed to Terra to seek the counsel of the Emperor. The Primarch was desperate as the Imperium was collapsing. His Emperor needed warriors that Corax could not provide. Moreover, Corax was not granted permission to see the Emperor due to his workings on the man-made corridor at Eldar Webway. The Emperor, sensing his son's desperation, was somehow able to divert part of his psychic might in order to grant Corax what he was looking for. Through a psychic vision, Corax asked for a rapid and effective solution to restore his legion's might. The Emperor, feeling the righteous intent behind his son's question, implanted in his brain some selected memories concerning the project of the creation of the Primarchs and the exact place where the ancient laboratory was to be found. However, stated the Emperor, the laboratory was well guarded by a complex system called the Labyrinth, and it was up to Corax himself to find a way to pass through it. Corax was successful in this task, and what he obtained was the common genome all Primarchs shared. From this genome, through tough selection, the Emperor created each of the 20, granting each of them some particular and well-defined traits, such as psychic powers or increased strength, along with a number of other commonly shared feats, such as increased growing rate, regenerative powers, intellectual acumen, and so on. Once back on Deliverance, Corax tasked his chief apocryphy, Vincent VI, of retrieving the correct Raven Guard genome and start the direct implantation on fresh recruits. With the assistance of the Loyalist Mechanicum Genitor Nexon Orlandris, Six actually accomplished the task and went so far as to approach complete removal of the prognoid glands. From the correct genome, in fact, the whole Space Marine would have grown directly, all his enhanced organs already present. The only exception would have been the black carapace due to its synthetic nature. The carapace permits the interface to the power armor and is not a real organ itself. In this way, the prognoids would have been useless for future generations. With this knowledge, around 500 new war-ready Marines were created in a few weeks, and it is at this point an infamous treachery took place. Some Astartes of the Alpha Legion, in a plan orchestrated by the Primarch Alpharius Ogaman themselves, infiltrated the Raven Guard after the Drop Site Massacre. To obtain this, Alpharius Legion apocryphes grafted the facial traits of some dead Raven Guards over the face of their own legionaries. The objective was to hinder the Raven Guard using their obtained knowledge, as this would have displaced the balance against Horus's forces, said the Cabal emissaries. Of course, since free to act as best suited, Alpharius Ulgaman had in mind also to recover the secret knowledge in order to expand their legion as well. With the help of the renegade Mechanicum and his forces in Caviar, the Alpha Legion tainted the original genome recovered from the laboratories of the Emperor on Terra. This was accomplished introducing a virus-vectored mutagen based on demonic blood. Thus, the successive implantations resulted in still operational but deeply mutated Astartes exhibiting scales, horns, fangs, tails, overgrown muscles, and similar features. However, while the plan to corrupt the new Astartes were successful, the attempt by the Alpha Legion to destroy the Legion's gene seed was not. After this outburst of mutations and the discovery of the Alpha Legion infiltrators, Corax decided to stop the rebuilding of the Raven Guard and led his warriors, along with the war-capable mutated Marines, with small squads striking like lightning on the enemy's weak spots. Following the battle on the Ravendale, Corax still was committed to combating the forces of Horus. Compensating for his devastated legion's small numbers, he conducted raids, hit-and-run attacks, and instigated uprisings on traitor-controlled worlds. These included actions on Constanix II, Scorato, and Corindiro. Eventually, Corax reassembled the entirety of his surviving legion on the Daxius system. There, he contemplated the future of the Raven Guard, with many of his legion wishing to return to Terra to aid the Emperor against Horus's offensive. After evading the Night Lord's attack, Corax was again influenced by the visions of Marcus Valerius, who saw the Space Wolves were on the verge of destruction. Corax led the Raven Guard in the Battle of Yarant to aid the Space Wolves against traitor forces. During the battle, Corax led a suicidal last stand alongside Bjorn. But after witnessing the arrogance and vanity of Horus's forces, realized that it was not up to him to determine when he would die. He was a servant of the Emperor and would continue to aid him against the traitors until he met his end. Thus, Corax led an evacuation from Yarant and expressed his intent to continue resisting the traitorous War Master from the shadows. Corax and Russ made for deliverance, eventually meeting up with Leon L. Johnson at the Raven Guard's Fortress Monastery. The Lion is quick to question the Raven Lord's absence from major fronts of the war, but it is ear to put to rest by Russ, who points at the survival of his own legion as evidence of their worth. Russ declares he will join the Lion's crusade of vengeance, including warriors equipped with new Mark VI power armor produced on Caviar. Corax, however, is cautious to commit his bloodied legion to what he sees as a needlessly spiteful waste, and only assigns a small expeditionary force of his Raven Guard to the Lion's forces. Even in this role, Corax's forces will be used to eliminate any enemy targets ahead of the main Dark Angel's fleet in order to spare entire worlds from annihilation. Raven Guard forces later took part in the siege of Barabbas, assailing the homeworld of the Death Guard alongside the Dark Angels and Space Wolves. Ultimately, he managed to rebuild his legion. The Horus heresy had ended and reboot Golemon's codex edicts that the legion had been split in smaller chapters. Knowing that Golemon's vision was true, Corax split his forces but remained unable to forget the growling monsters that he had personally created. After pondering for hours as to what should be done, he decided to administer the Emperor's peace to the ones who remained, praying for their souls and his. When racked with guilt, he locked himself in his chamber in the Ravenspire, begging for the Emperor's mercy. Nobody knows if he received the absolution he required, but a year to the day after he had locked himself in, he left the tower in deliverance on a course toward the Eye of Terror, never to be seen by the Imperium again. His last recorded words were, "Nevermore."